Okay, it is almost the end of October. Not quite the end of October, there's still a few days left, but in the next few days I am working and then I'm leaving for a trip, so I won't have time to film or edit outside of today and tomorrow. So, gonna go ahead and film this a little bit early. I don't know that I will be making much other writing progress in the next couple of days with everything going on anyway, so close enough to the end of the month as it goes. So, I'm gonna go back to my standard format that I usually do for these. I know I've had a couple videos recently that have been a little less within the standard format, but I'm gonna go ahead and, as I usually do with these writing update videos, go over things I've been enjoying, talk about things I've been learning, and then go over what you can expect in the upcoming month from me. So starting with things I'm enjoying, the first thing is seeing the story take shape through the outline. So this novel that I am preparing to write for NaNoWriMo, I've talked about it a little bit in previous videos, but it's a contemporary coming-of-age novel that I have never written before. So the project that I started with at the beginning of the year is a story that I have been working on since I was a teenager. I have written it in various formats. This one has been so interesting because it's so new to me. These characters and a lot of the scenes that are there have been in my head for a long time, but I've never actually written them down or attempted to see the story as a whole. So having to get an outline ready for NaNoWriMo, it was really interesting to be able to see how all those scenes start to fit together and to see what needed to be filled in. And it's been fun even knowing that not everything I wrote down is probably going to happen within the story. So when I finished the rough draft of the outline, it was 136 chapters, definitely way too long, and there's a lot already that I can see that's pretty repetitive, but I'm trying to capture certain character moments and certain character interactions. So even knowing that a lot of that is either going to be condensed or combined or cut, or knowing that some of those scenes won't necessarily be full scenes, but it might be presented as a text conversation, a diary entry, or something along those lines. It's still fun approaching the story through that way because it's the first time I've seen it completely take shape. Again, even if it doesn't hold that shape, which I'm expecting it not to, that's something else that I've learned that I'll just throw in here really quickly because it's not a big point, but I'm definitely a plotter. I like to have a plot ahead of time. I like to have an outline ahead of time, but I'm also very open to changing it as I go, as I discover the story, as I'm writing it. I know the plot beats that need to happen and I have a trajectory, but I'm okay with changing things as they go. And so that's something I've been learning about myself as a writer, just a quick little tidbit. But yeah, even knowing that the story, as I've written it down now in the outline, isn't necessarily going to look like that when I actually write it, it's just been so fun to see the whole thing kind of come together and to know what story I'm looking forward to telling. That was probably my favorite part of this month. Was, yes, it was a little overwhelming trying to get that outline done in time and a little intimidating seeing the chapter count just go up and up and up, but again, knowing that not all of it's going to end up that way, knowing that I will make adjustments as I go, but considering the fact that this is also a story idea I've had since high school but that I've just never touched, it's so fun being able to see the whole thing kind of start to take a shape and a form and to know what I'm looking forward to. And the second thing is just knowing that I'm getting closer to writing the story. I think I've had people ask me, like, are you really intimidated by the process? You know, NaNoWriMo's coming up, that's a really big ask. For one thing, I've done NaNoWriMo before. I've never had an issue with writing a lot of words. It's making the words matter. I am notoriously an overwriter where I go way above the word count that I'm supposed to and then I have to trim backwards. Obviously, as you can tell from my 136 chapters that I outlined, that almost certainly don't all need to be there. I'm just an overwriter. So the word count of NaNoWriMo doesn't intimidate me. It was more the idea of having to approach a new project because I've never worked on it in any capacity before. But I very quickly got over that intimidation because the more that I worked on the outline, the more that I looked at the story that was taking shape, like I said, the more excited I am to get back to writing. And I've not felt that kind of excitement for a project in a long time. I think as much as I love the previous project I was working on, as much as that is the story of my heart, I was so, like I've said in previous videos, I was so overwhelmed by it and so burnt out by the work I'd been doing on it. And I'd just been hammering away at it for too long to really feel any joy in it anymore. So getting back into working on a new project, of going through that process of getting everything set up, at first it was tricky to get that going again because my brain felt so tired and my creativity was kind of worn out. But the more that I worked on it, the more I was just, man, I'm so excited to start writing this. Is it going to be good to start with? No, it's going to be a mess to start with. But knowing that I have a fun project that I'm excited to work on has just been a joy, and I can't wait to get to it. And that's all for things that I've been enjoying. Obviously, I've enjoyed the entire process, but those are the two main points. Everything else is just details that I don't necessarily need to get into. But overall, yes, it was so fun to put the outline together. I love seeing the story take shape after having it living in my brain for so long, and I'm just looking forward to beginning it. So moving on to things that I am learning. Something that I had to figure out with this project was how to approach the planning process. Because I've been working on the one fantasy project for so long, I had a process, or I was continually updating my process as I approached it and as as I grew more and more as a writer, I learned how to hone my approach in different ways as needed, but I did always kind of have a trajectory that I followed. And with this project, I kind of went the opposite direction. So usually I begin with character. I start by doing these super detailed character sheets. I go over exactly who they're supposed to be, and I try to let that drive everything that I'm writing, which would make sense for a project like this because it is so character driven, but that's what I tended to do for my fantasy work, and so then I got caught up in the weeds with the plot and it was just really messy. But for this one, where you would think it'd be better for me to start with character, maybe it is, I don't know, I actually ended up starting with plot instead, because I know generally who these characters are supposed to be and I know what roles they're supposed to fill. And a piece of advice that I heard from Maggie Stiefvater from the seminar I attended with her at the beginning of this year that I've mentioned a few times, she talks about how she doesn't go into all the detailed character work right at the beginning, because then it's harder to rearrange chapter and plot later on because you've invested so much into the character that having to kind of undo that internalization is really difficult. So with that advice in the back of my mind and the fact that I had the NaNoWriMo deadline approaching, I decided to start with just, okay, let's figure out what the story is, let's figure out what the plot's supposed to be, what are all the beats that need to happen, and I can work on the detailed character work as I'm working on the actual writing of it. So I started originally with character, and then I switched gears really quickly and went just into, okay, what's even happening? What is the trajectory that I need to follow? What's going to happen in each of these characters' lives? And again, it seems counterintuitive because this is such a character-driven project. You know, there's not exactly a ton of really plot going on. The plot is character growth because it is a coming-of-age story. I'm following these characters as they grow up and just the different happenings that are going on in their life and the different circumstances that they're facing. A lot of it is going to be their internalization and how they deal with those problems and how their characters grow throughout the story. So you'd think I should start with character, but it worked better for me to go and do plot first and be able to tell myself the whole story and say, okay, here's everything that needs to happen. And I know when writing it, I will start to discover those characters and their quirks and more of those in-depth character details as I work through those scenes because the scenes are so character dependent. So learning not to be so strict about I must approach it this way or, well, this is what my process looks like, so I need to do it that way. I think my approach as a writer is going to be a little different with each project that I do, and that's okay. I don't necessarily have to be religious about the way that I approach a project. I don't have to go in the order of character, then plot, then such and such. I can start however I need to, and I can play with it however I need to, and it really is going to depend on the project, and I think it's going to be a learning process and something I adjust every time I approach a new book. So that was really interesting to learn about myself this month, is I'm such a character girl. It's where I've always began. When I looked at this project, knowing it was so character driven, it somehow made more sense to start with plot and to work backwards that way. So that was definitely an interesting process, one that I was surprised by, but that ended up really working for me. And again, I kind of already touched on this. This is my last point before I get into looking ahead. But like I said, I'm an overwriter and I'm an overplanner. And being okay with the fact that not all that's going to make it into the final draft, not all of it's going to make it into the story, that was kind of a learning process for me. But it wasn't so difficult as I thought it was going to be. I tend to get very attached to certain scenes and of course to certain characters, and because this project is so new and I haven't invested as much emotional time into it as I have with the other project, it helps knowing that I have a plan that has so many things that could happen, but that I can whittle it down as I need to, and that not being devastating was very surprising. But also, again, it just goes into this sense of learning how I am as a writer, of knowing that I'm an overwriter, knowing that I'm an overplanner, and recognizing off the bat that yes, I'm going to write all these things down that I think are going to happen, and inevitably it's going to change. Not fundamentally. I know what the key scenes are that need to be there. I know the certain character beats that really need to happen. I know that a lot of what I've written down as chapters is actually filler, and I will have to cut and combine and rearrange and rethink the way that I approach those. And this initial outline is just for me to tell myself the story and say, okay, here's everything that could happen. Let's begin and figure it out from there. So learning that it's okay that I'm an overplanner, and also knowing that it's okay within that everything that I plan and all the work I put into it isn't necessarily going to happen. That's been a lesson for me this month, but one that wasn't difficult to learn, which I thought would be more difficult for me to learn, but I think the more that I work on writing projects, the more that I try to grow as a writer, the more I learn about the significance of the idea of killing your darlings. Something that we discussed in grad school was that phrase was learning to kill your darlings, and most people think of that as being okay with killing off a character or getting rid of someone, but really it means any piece of writing that you just absolutely love and you become attached to, you have to be willing to sacrifice it if it's not helping the story or if it doesn't work for the story. So starting to internalize that with this particular project, even in the outlining stage, knowing that all the stuff that I planned isn't necessarily going to happen and I'm going to have to be okay with cutting, was a lesson that clicked pretty quickly for me, and one that was easier to learn than I was expecting it to be, because I thought I would be more emotionally attached, but I had this nice distance between me and the project this time because it's so new. So yeah, that was an interesting thing that came up this month too. But that's it as far as writing goes. Most of my month was spent getting an outline together and trying to get ready for NaNoWriMo, which is I'm looking at my calendar, in about 4 days. So it's October 28th now. So yeah, I start writing in 4 days, which I'm both so nervous and so excited about, but mostly excited. So speaking of NaNoWriMo, because that is next month, let's talk about what you can expect from me moving forward for this month. Because it's NaNoWriMo, my month is just going to be full of that. I think you probably will not see a lot of me over this next month. I know you didn't see a lot of me this month either, but most of my time and energy is going to be focused on getting that done, because I have no doubt that I will hit 50,000 words. That's nothing to me, because again, I write too much. It's just what I do. But I think I do want to try to finish this draft before the end of the year. That is my goal. So we'll see how much I can get done, how much of the story I can get written. I know it's going to bleed into December, and I will be working on this for the rest of the year. It'll be really interesting this next month to see how much I'm able to accomplish during NaNoWriMo, and just being able to put all my efforts into prioritizing the writing this next month will be really nice. So you won't hear a lot from me probably, because I'll be focused on that completely. But speaking of that, I am planning to record all my NaNoWriMo progress throughout the month, so I'm planning to put together a big NaNoWriMo vlog that I will post sometime in December. So with that, I will likely have a November update, but it's likely going to be very short, because I don't want to dedicate all this time to doing a writing update video while also giving you the vlog. And I'd like to do the vlog because I think that would be fun to kind of follow my progress throughout the month, especially considering the fact that I have been trying to do a writing vlog all year and just keep not having time for it. So you can expect a November writing update from me, but chances are it's just going to be a brief little blip going over things I've enjoyed, things I learned, what's coming up the next month. But the bigger thing that you can expect is that NaNoWriMo vlog, which I should hopefully, or so is the plan, have up within the first few days of December. And then a final note on my book reviews. So if you've been here for a little bit, you know that my goal this year is to read 100 books. It's a number I've always wanted to hit that I've never been able to. I am, for one thing, so behind on my reading. I think last time I checked on Goodreads, I was like 5 books behind schedule, which is so many to catch up on. So I'm a little stressed about that. And a lot of what's been cutting into my time is trying to keep up with reviewing everything that I'm reading. So from here on out, unless I feel especially compelled, I probably won't be doing any more review videos this year. And I'm also going to be pausing in my Goodreads reviews. So that was something that I wanted to supplement video reviews for, because at the beginning of the year, my idea was to do a review video for every single book that I read, and I realized very quickly that wasn't realistic for where I was and with how much time that I have available to me. So when I came to that realization, I decided, okay, well, I'll still do a Goodreads review for everything that I read, and that just ends up taking so much time. I really enjoyed writing them. I really like being able to sit down and come up with a summary in my own words and talk about what I think about it in succinct terms. So I've really enjoyed writing the reviews, but they do take 30 to 45 minutes depending on the review, because it just takes me time to gather all my thoughts, and once I've gathered all of them, then I have to translate it into a review, and it just takes time. I also tend to have a backlog of books to review because I finish them one after the other. So if I have 4 books to review, that ends up being close to 4 hours of work that I have to find within my week. And with the number of books I still have to read for this year, and with the fact that I'm doing NaNoWriMo and trying to finish this draft before the end of the year, there's just not enough time to do all of them. So for the time being, I'm going to pause on Goodreads reviews. Again, if I feel especially compelled by one to write something about it or to do a video review, I will try to fit that in. But my plan right now is at the end of the year, maybe even beginning of next year, I will sit down and go through all the books that I am finishing within these latter 2 months of the year and just give a brief review, literally a minute or two, of how I felt about it, what my thoughts were, just going over it really quickly, and kind of do a rapid fire review session of all of those at the very end, just to wrap them all up. I will continue to leave star ratings, so when I finish a book and kind of type out my thoughts really quickly and decide what star rating I want to give it, I'll still post about those, and I'll put those on Goodreads, but the actual reviews I'm going to have to put on hold for now, just because as much as I love doing them, I'm running out of time to do the other bigger projects that are really important to me. And it cuts into the reading time. I'm behind on the reading because half the time I'm trying to write the reviews for the things I've already read. So I'll catch up with those another time. But for now, yeah, for the rest of the year, gonna just go ahead and put those on pause. I'm sorry if you're one of the people who does read my Goodreads reviews instead of watching all the videos. I wish I could do it all, and I just don't have time. But it's something I hope to get back to at some point, because I do really enjoy writing them. But for now, for the rest of the year, my focus is finish this draft and get to that 100-book goal, because those were my 2 original goals at the beginning of the year, and if I lose sight of those for all these little detailed things for social media, then I feel like I didn't accomplish what I actually set out to do. So yeah, that's an annoying decision I have to make, but one that I felt was necessary. So just so you are updated on that. But yeah, I think that's everything you can expect from me. I am going to spend the next few days just glancing over my outline again, making sure it's all ready to go, getting set up for NaNoWriMo. There is a part of me that is a little nervous because I'm going out of town the first week of November, and I think so far I have something going on every single weekend in the month of November, so there's already a part of me that's like, the calendar's filling up and how am I going to do this? But more than anything, I'm excited to write the book. The thing that's stressing me is more my schedule of my personal life and not so much the actual writing itself. The writing itself, I am so looking forward to getting back to. And again, even if it's a mess, even if I know half the stuff that I'm writing isn't going to make it or it's going to have to be heavily edited, I'm excited to tell myself this story for the first time ever and just see what happens. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. I so appreciate you being here and cheering me on. As always, you can also follow me on Instagram and Goodreads if you feel so inclined. Goodreads, of course, is not going to be as active this year, but you can still follow it if you want to and see everything else that I posted about. And then, of course, if you feel so inclined and you'd like to see what else I am doing on here, you can also click subscribe below. But yeah, in the meantime, happy reading, happy writing, happy NaNoWriMo to those of you who are participating, and I will check in with you at the end of November.